Coming up on this week's Weird News, we have stories about parking in disabled bays, dog suicides, dead parking tickets, and getting dressed on a bus.
And now, it's time for this week's Weird News with Daniel Bryan.
Hello and welcome again to this week's Weird News. Today we bring you episode 17. If you like the show, why not tell your friends, or click subscribe on iTunes. On our last show, our first story was about an advert that appeared on Gumtree, advertising for someone to try out a new time machine that one woman had developed in her garage. Our second story was about a cat that regularly rides on the bus and knows which stop to get on and off at. Our third story was about a man going home from a drunken night out when he discovered some food, which he began to eat, only to discover, a little way in, that it was actually concrete. And our final story was about North Korea, who had allegedly found a wonder drug that can cure AIDS, Ebola, and cancer. Also, on TWWN Music last week, we had Luke Potter. Yep, again, Luke Potter with another song, this time called Do You Love Me? If you missed last week's show, find it on our website at www.thisweeksweirdnews.com or download the podcast on all the major platforms. Now it's time for the weird and wonderful news over the last week that you may have missed. Our stories today come from week 26, 2015, or as some of you may prefer, the 22nd to the 28th of June.
Story number 1.
In southern Brazil this week, one man got taught a lesson in parking. Just like here in the UK, there are disabled parking spaces located nearer to shops and points of interest. Obviously, these spots are there for disabled people, and not for those who are more mobility able. Well, one man decided to park in a disabled spot in Brazil this week, and he was taught a lesson for doing so. Upon returning to his car, he discovered it had been covered in hundreds of post-it notes. The whole of the car, including the windows, were all covered in blue post-it notes. And clearly, in white post-it notes, was the disabled emblem of a man in a wheelchair. This feat would have taken someone a lot of time, so they must have been prepared to have so many post-it notes on hand for the stunt. I would have guessed that they weren't sort of working alone on this, as they didn't know how much time they would have before the man would return to his car. Because they wanted such a length to do this, I would assume that the man must park in the spot on a regular basis, and that it winds them up, and so they planned some sort of revenge. When the man returned to his car, he was totally astonished and embarrassed, as onlookers around were all getting their phones out and start taking photographs and video of the man. The man got a little stressed and quickly tried to remove some of the post-it notes from his windscreen to allow him to drive off. He then got into the car and drove a little bit before deciding he still couldn't see where he was going, and he actually had to remove a few more of the post-it notes. So out he got again, removed some more, before getting back into the car and speeding off up the road. However, after the man sped off, it was a little bit too late, as videos are now up on YouTube, and they've clocked over 10,000 views. So do you agree that people park in disabled bays when they shouldn't? Does it annoy you? Are you affected by this? Would you have the patience to teach someone a lesson in this way, or would you simply just say it to their face? Get in touch with some of your views and we'll share them next week.
Story number 2.
When you go out for a walk with your dog, do you worry for their safety? Maybe you keep an eye out for cars and stuff like that. But in Scotland, you have to watch out for other things. And if you consider that over 50 dogs have died from this, then it probably is a real concern for dog walkers in the area. But what's killing these dogs? Well, it's not a moving vehicle, or even a person. It's a bridge. The Overton Bridge in Scotland is renowned as being responsible for the death of over 50 dogs. The dogs simply jump off the bridge and fall 50 feet to their death. But why would a dog simply jump to their death? Dogs are renowned to be clever animals, and they would not be unaware of the result of jumping from such a height. Well, no one really knows for sure, There have been many explanations over the years as to why it happens, from overexcited canines to ghosts haunting the bridge. The haunting is one of the most in-depth explanations for the phenomenon, where people believe that it's the spirit of the White Lady of Overton, and she is pushing them over the bridge. Numerous sightings and experiences back up this explanation. One teacher, called Paul Owens, was visiting the bridge when he claims that
I was standing there 2 years ago when I felt a firm, hard prod that felt like a finger.
Also, back in 1994, Kevin Moy threw his baby son to his death from the bridge, and later he tried to kill himself at the same spot. So if the spirit is real, it's not just dogs that she is after. But perhaps dogs are just a slightly easier target, and that's why there's more of them. Another slightly more rational theory for the dog suicides is that there's a strong smell of mink in the area, and this powerful musk attracts the dog's senses. Along with the fact that the bridge has walls down either side that the dogs can't see over, and that they hear the sound of water running underneath the bridge. Apparently, with all the confusion to their senses, scientists believe they try to jump over the wall to find out what's going on without realising there's a giant drop. After all the goings on the bridge, it's now been installed with a safety sign saying, "Dangerous bridge, please keep your dogs on a lead." One dog owner, whose dog was affected by the bridge, said the following.
"We'd just got out of the car and Cassie immediately made her way to the bridge. She turned her head, looked up and did this massive leap. I'll never forget the awful whine she made as she leaped. My son looked down and all he could see was a dot. She managed to get herself up and met my son, collapsing when she saw him. How she survived that, I'll never know."
So what really happens on the bridge? What do you think causes the animals to commit suicide? Get in touch with some of your views. You can become part of this week's Weird News. This section of the show could be dedicated to you. Sponsor the show and we can fill this section with a tailor-made advert just for you. Reach your audience in a different way with the power of a podcast. We are open to your ideas, so get in touch at thisweeksweirdnews@gmail.com. Get on board with us now as our listeners grow and we can reach more and more subscribers together.
Story number 3.
Have you ever received a parking ticket? Or have you ever received a parking ticket while sat in the car? Or have you ever received a parking ticket while dead inside the car? Well, I hope if any of them are true, it's more the earlier ones. But why am I on about it? Well, in New York this week, a ticket warden placed a ticket on a car, unaware that the owner, Mamadou Barry's lifeless body lay inside. But this was not the only ticket he got. Another parking ticket was placed on the car, again failing to see the dead man in the driving seat. So did they see the man there and just ticket it anyway, or did they genuinely not see him? When he was eventually discovered, it was deemed that the man had died of natural causes, and there was no investigation required. In a twist to the story, however, there were other cars parked around the vehicle, and on one occasion the other vehicles in the street were ticketed, but Manandou's car was missed. Why was this? Did the warden see him in there and just forget to tell anyone? The death is not being looked into, but this missing ticket and why no one reported it is being looked into. So sadly the man has passed away. So does this mean the tickets are now void?
Story number 4.
This week in Vietnam, some people were taking a sleeper bus. Well, one of the passengers videoed something that was firstly dangerous and secondly not something that you would expect a driver to do while having a bus full of people. The bus had around 40 passengers on when this happened, and one woman filmed the driver while he put his socks and shoes on while going along. While doing so, he occasionally paused to adjust the steering wheel and have a glance at the road. When done, he'd go back to tying up his laces. The driver must have assumed that everyone on the bus was asleep and that no one would see his reckless behaviour. The person who filmed the bus driver said,
"I guess he had taken his shoes off because it was more comfortable on a long journey, and he had been wearing trainers instead. But when the bus was about to reach its final destination, he turned on some music and then took off his trainers and put back on his smarter but less comfortable socks and shoes. He wasn't even looking at the road properly, only occasionally looking up to make sure the bus was on track and turning the steering wheel slightly to keep things on course. Most of the passengers were not aware of what was going on. Idiots like this make our roads unsafe. He should lose his licence and his job.
So how would you have acted if this had happened on your bus? Would you have filmed it like this person did? Or said something to the driver? Do you think he should be reprimanded for it? Get in touch with your views. And that's it for this week's 4 news stories. We hope you've enjoyed them. Tell your friends about them and get in contact with us with your views and comments. Or, if you notice any stories over the next week that you want to tell us about that we could feature on the show, let us know. You can email us at
thisweeksweirdnews@gmail.com.
or comment on any of our social media pages.
Comment on Facebook at facebook.com/thisweeksweirdnews or on Twitter @weeksweirdnews.
Or you can go to our website where you'll find all these contact details, more about the show, and you can listen to our previous TWWN music artists. To do this, go to
www.thisweeksweirdnews.com.
TWWN Music.
On this week's TWWN Music, we are showcasing yet another up-and-coming artist in the music world. Last week, we had Luke Potter with his new song, Do You Love Me Yet? Go have another listen on our website, on the TWWN Music page. If you liked it, go check out his YouTube channel for further songs. But on to this week, where we have Jade Henderson. Jade is very local to me here in the UK. She lives in Burford in Oxfordshire, and has been singing for as long as she can remember. Over the last year, she has begun hitting the gigging scene and getting out there at events. She is currently working on her first EP, so watch this space for a whole set of original songs from Jade. The song of Jade's that we are playing today is called Nobody Knows. The song was written about Jade's brother Michael, who went on a tour of Afghanistan in 2011. For Jade and her family, this brought out many emotions in them, not knowing where he was or how he was doing, or even if they would ever see him again. Jade explains that the song brings out a perspective on how it would be to face such a thing, for the person going and the people left behind. Thankfully, Michael came home safe and sound and wasn't sent on any more tours of Afghanistan. So check out Nobody Knows, and I think you'll agree that it's an amazing song and she has an amazing voice. And it's definitely worth going to go buy the track to show your support. Then check out our website at www.thisweeksweirdnews.com and go to the TWWN music page to listen again to her song and check out her social media links. And don't forget to go like her Facebook page. You will also be able to find links to her song where you can buy it on YouTube and Amazon. So thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week with more weird and wonderful news from around the world. Now, to play us out, it's Jade Henderson with Nobody Knows.
3,000 miles away from home, you're thinking of me. She bathes your children, she lays them to sleep. They miss their father, and you miss him too. Wherever you are and whatever you do, I'll be right there standing next to you. I hold your hand and I pull you close, 'cause nobody knows. You might be fighting, but she is too, to keep her heart from thinking of you.
Join us next time for more weird and wonderful news from around the world. Only on this week's Weird News. Goodbye.